Hello there, folks. I'm Dan Brown from a sort of interesting life.com. You're joining me out here on board good old Narrowboat Tilly, just by the Frankton Locks, just through the bridge down there. And today we're going to go on a little walk. Now, I thought I'd just do this introduction now as we can see what's really caused my little investigation here today, as there is, just on the top of this little bank, a little stile there. And if we move down and have a look over into the other side of the field and zoom in, you might see there's also a stile right in the middle of the hedgerow there in the centre of this shot. And despite the fact that I've moored up here many times over the last few years, and also been coming to this place fishing with me dad since I was a proper wee laddie and so on, I've never really investigated this side, and it's just got me curious seeing these little places out through the windows of Tilly over the last week or so. So off I wandered down the towpath and joined the road at the bridge there, and then hopped over the stile into the field just by where that wooden pallet is over by the hedge. And at this point, I want to point out that this trip is going to be an awful lot shorter than I anticipated. Now, I knew that it couldn't be a long trip across the fields, as we'd soon meet this same road again further up the hillside, but I wasn't quite expecting it to be as short as it actually happened to turn out. So, as we hop over into that field now, I'll let you see a clip that I actually recorded up here of my first issue with my planning. Okay then, my friends, you can see Tilly down there, and if we zoom out and have a look up here, we are currently at the stile that I thought I could see on top of the bank here. If we pan the camera around nice and slowly, getting that misty scenery and the trees vanishing off on the top of the hill there in the distance, well, the top stile on the bank is actually just part of a gateway. So that explains what my first issue was just then, in thinking, hang on, if we've just come into this field off the road, then where on earth does this path go? Back to the road maybe? So that's not a stile, ignore that, and we are now heading directly ahead down to there. I really do love old rickety stiles like this. Sometimes, admittedly, they can be so rickety that you don't want to put any weight on them, which can be an issue. But there's something just knowing that these things have been stood here out in the middle of nowhere for decades, and you think, God, how many people have walked down this route, and what stories of random travellings and stuff have they got to tell? And I love as well old stuff like this, like trees that are half decayed and blown over, and there's trees that have been struck by lightning on the outskirts of Oswestry that I know, and they have this sort of almost horror film silhouette that they throw up into the sky, like, especially with this misty background too. As you can see though, unfortunately, it was still very wet underfoot, despite there not being any rain in the sky. So as we passed through here, I realised really at this point that my great big trip, or short trip as it was intended, was going to be very short, as I started to see where this path was heading, which was directly right up to that road again. Like I say, from the bridge, we're literally going to travel less than a mile in this video in total. So that was far shorter than I had imagined, and I was imagining it being a pretty short trip to begin with, like I say. And again, I love these random little drainage things that you see, because again, you can see sometimes in these old fields, like little channels and stuff that once upon a time probably had streams and brooks running in them, and see random little like half crumbled drains and stuff like that. And this is just a close-up on the map of the very tiny little walk that we actually did there, just up from the canal, round that little corner of road and back. And really, I suppose at this point I will start to wrap things up and say thank you very much for joining me on this incredibly underwhelming trip, I suppose is the only way it can really be described. And ultimately, if you have enjoyed this video or want to see more of boat life and the great outdoors, then please do check out all the videos on this channel. There's now unbelievably over 100 videos on this sort of interesting channel. I've got loads of sort of outdoor equipment bits and pieces coming up as well, and Leatherman multi-tools and pen knives, that sort of stuff. So please do check out my other videos. If you're super curious about boat life, check the links in the description for my short boat life Kindle books. Until the next time though, keep it boat worthy, keep it boat worthy, and of course, farewell.